What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Castelli podcast, provided to you by the people behind the brand and the iconic product innovations. I'm your host, Søren Jensen, Castelli Marketing Manager, and in this week's episode, our Tri-Division Manager, Bernard Pleiner, is joined by one of the world's top triathletes and road cyclist, Cameron Wurf from Tasmania. Cam is a truly remarkable athlete who has been a part of the Castelli family for several seasons now. Cam's sporting career is nothing short of extraordinary. Initially starting out as a rower, he reached the pinnacle of his athletic pursuits by representing his country in the men's double scull at the 2004 Athens Olympics. However, it was during his time as a rower that Cam discovered the integral role cycling played in his training regime, leading him to venture into the world of road racing, where he competed for various teams until 2017, where Cam's path took an unexpected turn as he found himself captivated by the world of triathlon. Since then, he has left an indelible mark on the sport, achieving a remarkable success at the highest level. In fact, his talent and dedication caught the attention of one of the most dominating professional road cycling teams of the last decade, the British Team Ineos, back in 2020. He joined the ranks, skillfully balancing his active career between road cycling and triathlon. As we speak, Cam is preparing to take on the ultimate triathlon challenge of the year, the Ironman World Championships in Nice. Despite his busy training schedule, he kindly sat down with Bernard to chat about his amazing career and goals for this Sunday. So join us as we embark on this captivating journey with Cameron Wurf, where we'll discover his victories, hurdles, and dreams that have shaped his amazing sporting career. If you have any questions you would like to have answered on the podcast, send us an email to podcast@castelli-cycling.com. You can also find a link in the show notes together with some of the other important links. Without further ado, here are Bernard Pleiner and Cameron Wurf.
Cam, hello on our Castelli podcast. Thanks a lot for taking the time to talk to me today. It's a real pleasure having you on our Castelli podcast. I want to dive, since we are in Ironman Nice World Championships race week, I want to dive into the topic right away. So, not Kona this year, it's Nice. What do you think about it?
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? We started talking about doing this podcast in 2019, I think, or maybe early 2020, before COVID. It's taken us 4 years or 3.5 years to make it happen.
Yeah, time is flying.
So it's fantastic to finally get the chance to do it with you. But yeah, we're not in Kona. That's another difference. We waited so long to go back, and then we got to go once, and now they've changed it. Obviously, like everyone, it's not Kona, so it's a nothing ever replaces Kona. You could call it the World Championships, you could call it whatever you like. Kona is Kona. It's like the Tour de France. So it's obviously different, It is. It's more of a world championship, I guess. It really does feel like you're going to try and win the world championship here in Nice. Whereas in Kona, you're just trying to win Kona. The fact that it's the world championship is sort of just, oh yeah, okay, cool, you get that bit as well. But in reality, you're trying to become one of those famous, the famous ones that can win that race. So I think this genuinely just feels like a world championship, which but more specifically than it does with Kona, which I think means that it feels very important, obviously, and has been a huge motivating factor for me in my preparation for the event, to try and become the world champion. Obviously for me, on paper, the course suits me better than, say, the course in Hawaii with the very challenging bike course. I probably had a few reality checks in the past couple of years with my opposition on the bike, and have had to go away and work harder than I ever have worked before on that aspect as well. You get a bit complacent, think you're good enough, and you just work on the others. Well, I've really tried to up my game on the bike, and also at the same time tried to up my game in everything else. So I'm just as excited. I think genuinely, I feel there's a lot of people interested to see how I go, and to be honest, I'm quite interested to see how I'll go as well. I'm really excited to see where the work puts me. So yeah, it's fantastic to finally be here, and it's such a privilege to be, able to, fight for a world title. So I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah, that's great. Only a few days left until the gun goes off in Nice. How has your training and preparation been lately?
Yeah, everything's gone to plan, I guess. As far as I can see, I set out, I guess, at the start of the year. That time for me, it's a very rough plan because, as we all know, the first part of the year I'm dedicated a bit more to the team and being on call, and triathlon, I guess, is a bit of a secondary thought at that point in the year, and then I also need to qualify, so I sort of just have to pull together what I can to sort of get that done, and then that sort of coincides the end of the spring coming into summer when, in the team, all the guys are, wanting to race, so, there's not much of a requirement for me to be racing and traveling on the road with the team, so I can actually get knuckled down and get stuck into my training, and I can honestly say, July, August, and here we are in September. It's all gone exactly how I imagined it would. I've been able to do some sessions I didn't think I would be capable of, and I've taken on some tough. I sort of wrote down, I always wrote down some goals at the start of the year, and one thing I felt like I didn't do very well last year was I didn't embrace the sort of challenges, novelties, like Richie Port and I doing Everesting, for example, and some of the silly runs I've done, or swims I've done, or different activities, and I've tried to. Roubaix was a good example early in the year. I thought, right, if I do Roubaix, then I want to go for a run afterwards, so that was cool. I was able to do another Everesting type challenge in Andorra recently at my home. I sort of mapped out a route where I basically did all the major climbs in Andorra. I had no real idea how far it would be or the amount of climbing it was. I knew it would be over the Everesting, but it ended up being nearly 10,000 meters, so quite a bit over, and nearly 300 kilometers. So I feel that when I'm wanting to do stuff like that, that means not only physically am I in a good spot, but the biggest challenge with things like that is usually mentally. And it shows that I really want to train. I really want to push myself, and still want to keep improving. And I'm excited to see where that puts me in the race on Sunday.
Interesting. Looking forward to that. You have talked about that you have changed the approach of the season a little bit. So usually you've been racing bikes and also triathlon throughout the year, basically. But this year you scheduled your year a little bit differently, with basically a break after your last Ironman in it was actually Nice. The Ironman Nice was your last race.
Yeah.
So from Nice to Nice. Yep. So is there a deeper thought behind, or was it just because you felt you needed a little bit more training in running and swimming, or have there been different reasons for that?
The last couple of years is what I've learned is the respect. You got to respect the sport. Both sports, they're both very hard. And if you want to do them properly, I needed to sort of, periodize things a little bit better. And so the first part of the year, I basically thought, well, I think I can dedicate myself to being available for the team, doing my role for the team. And obviously I feel like I can still maintain the swimming and running enough, at a level enough to qualify for the World Championships. Now, I obviously missed out in Lanzarote. I got that a bit wrong, but I was able to rectify that quite quickly at the next race in Austria. And then obviously Nice was the weekend after, and as you know, I like to travel to the races with the family, and driving around Europe, I enjoy doing that. And we load up, so we'd driven to Austria. We had to drive back past Nice to get home, and I thought, well, gosh, I've already qualified for the World Championships. What a great opportunity to see the course. originally I planned to ride the course maybe on the Wednesday or the Thursday, and then obviously once I got there, I kind of felt a bit foolish not racing on the Sunday. And so, yeah, we agreed that that was going to be, as you know, when we think back to 18-19, I did something similar. I would do Nice, and then normally the weekend after I'd do Roth. And often Roth would be my better performance. But on that occasion, Nice was always a pretty average performance because, I'd do that sort of more as training, and it's a very hard race. Whereas this time, I kind of did it around the other way. I did my sort of good race in Austria, and I was pretty exhausted, and then I had to go to an even harder race and try to get through Nice. So basically, the compromise with the team, with the coaching staff was that, okay, if you're going to do something as crazy as this, then you've got to take a week off after that. So that was really where the forced break came into it, was just respecting that, it's been a busy first part of the year with a lot of travel, managing a lot of things. To qualify has become harder. The standard of the sport is much harder. So I've had to, work harder than probably expected to just achieve that off, minimal preparation. I've really had to sort of dig into the well of experience and years of conditioning to be able to get that park ticked off. And it was important just to respect how hard that had been on my body, and go and have a bit of a holiday. And we chose Greece because I couldn't take my bike. It was just a really nice period to switch off. And if I'm honest, Fallon and I haven't really done that since, since pre-COVID, because sort of the way that sort of came around, and every year since then has kind of rolled into another one. Is Kona going to happen? No. Okay, chase something else. Kona going to happen again? No. Okay, well, chase something else. And then all of a sudden we were finally in Kona. That didn't go well. So of course I was desperate to sort of, get back to work as quickly as possible to sort of improve. Yeah, it was nice to finally take a proper break and just switch off for a week. And I've come back all guns blazing, and my body feels fantastic. I don't recommend resting too much, but obviously every now and then it's a good. It's probably a good idea, and I think after doing back-to-back Ironmans, which I think I did both of them at a reasonably high level, I think it's probably a good idea to give yourself, at least a week off.
No, I think it's important to take those breaks once in a while, and that you also mentally you recover, you give your body the time to recover, also spending time with your family, and then refocus on the next goals, and give 100% for the goals ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big thing and I'd never really thought about it before, but with Wyatt, our little boy growing up, he's 3 now and wanting to do more things. The reality is this is a job, and I have to go to work and I have to train all day. And sometimes when I come home, I can't just drop everything and go and play. I'm a bit exhausted. I need to eat or drink or have a massage or stretch or whatever. It was really nice to go and give that time, feel more comfortable when I am training, to be able to say to him, "Mr. Mate, sorry, Dad, I've got to go train." And it's he gets it. It's also been fascinating to see how he has understood that. He understands, like, okay, when Dad's not training or we're on a holiday, he's there, or days off or whatever. But when I'm training, he never doesn't guilt me or anything. Dad, please stay home, or can't you just kick the ball a little longer or anything? I mean, he's really an amazing support. And obviously, Fallon, my wife, she's dealt with that for many, many years now. So, and then of course, Olive, the dog, who's, obviously very famous in the sport. She was in Greece too. So, she enjoyed it there. She roamed around like a stray cat for the week. No leash, just roamed around this little fishing village where we were staying, and you'd find her in the water every now and then. And so everyone had a great time. But it did. It meant when we came home, it was almost like everyone knew, okay, now I've got to knuckle down and really, prepare like I've never prepared before, and be ready for the World Championship. Because, as I said in the beginning, it's not Kona, but it is. It's a World Championship, and it's the sort of thing that gives you goosebumps thinking about it, and gets you out of bed every day to give it everything you got in your preparation. So,
Coming back a little bit to the race on Sunday, do you have exact knowledge if it's exactly the same course in most parts, especially on the bike, than you've been racing in June, or is it different in some areas?
No, it's identical. Well, identical. As I think people know from the Strava data, that course was about 10 kilometers short. So they have changed it from the old Nice, the one that Frederick Van Leer dominated for a century, years. It felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was slightly different to that. That course was around the same distance. I think that was low 170 kilometers, but had a couple of out and backs during that as well. So instead of those out and backs, like there was an out and back on that first long climb that we used to do. That's all of a sudden gone. There was also an out and back towards the top of the Col de Vence that was gone, and another one somewhere else on the course. They're all gone. There's a loop, the loop up on top of the ridge, like once you get up on the plateau, is much bigger. It's added in a couple of extra smaller climbs that are like between 3 and 5K long, not super steep, but challenging. So it's actually more up and down than it was before. And then to get the distance, they have added a 10 kilometer out and back. But just on the flat. It's basically just a token to make it 180k at some point. So, but the 170k that we did in Nice in June, I mean, it's a beautiful course. It's very challenging. It's even where the downhills until really even that last big long downhill. I mean, from everyone, I guess there's not ever been a lot of coverage of the racing, the Ironman, but the 70.3 Worlds did the same descent, and you saw. I mean, it's a pedaling descent. If you've got some fuel in the tank, you can really make a difference on that descent. If you're tired and using it as a recovery, like I was in Nice, because I really. Fortunately, I didn't hit the wall until the climb just before that. I really blew up the last kilometer of the last climb. Like I was just out of gas. So I had to use that downhill to just try and get something back together so that I could survive the run. It was really good for me to do that because although I wasn't pushing it on that descent, I was able to sort of spot that this is an opportunity to actually really make a difference. If you do manage to manage your effort really well, you can go quite fast down there. So, that was invaluable experience for me, getting to see the course, under race conditions, and the race fatigue feeling, knowing that amount of climbing can really catch up with you if you get it wrong. So, you definitely need to respect the course.
Did you learn also anything like maybe race dynamics, or what could be a good spot where you really could maybe some smaller hills where you can still push a big gear over a small bump, or is this something what you can't really memorize from June to September?
The climbing part's the obvious one. It's as I just said. It's knowing those other bits that you just mentioned, like the descent, after the climbs, the opportunities, I guess, where people are looking to recover, take a breather, take a rest. I think they're the parts that I've analysed the most as opportunities to make the biggest difference. Of course, I'll back myself to try and be the strongest on the climb, like I was in June, which surprised me because Clement Mignon. He's known as, well, what did Leon Chevalier, he told me they say he's the Vingegaard of triathlon, apparently, for climbing. So, and I rode away from him pretty comfortably on the climb. He obviously went on to win the race, so he was obviously, sticking to his plan, etc. But that certainly gave me some, because I was certainly well within myself as well. But it gave me a lot of confidence that I'm at that, a pretty high level, I think, when it comes to climbing in the sport. And Christian Hogenhaug as well. I mean, he's a very strong guy. I raced him in Mallorca a couple of years ago, and I couldn't get away from him on the climb. So it showed that I've probably improved quite a bit, especially considering the amount of fatigue I'd had from 6 days earlier. As I said, it's those other bits when early on in the race where I did have the punch, where I made the biggest difference on those guys. So yeah, it was a really good experience, and I'm certainly glad I did it. And the key that day was to make sure that I rode a good, consistent race, so we could get some good, relevant data to be able to put together a good plan to capitalise as much as possible on the course. But obviously, like anything, I got to get through the swim first. So I'm more worried about that than what I need to do on the bike, to be honest. If I swim well, everything seems to work out okay. So that's the first priority.
Yeah, I think we have a high chance that it will be a wetsuit legal swim. So that will definitely be...
Well, yeah, you never know, do you?
No.
I mean, that was it wasn't in June, but I swam front pack, and it was bizarre because, as you know, like from Austria the week before with Lukas there, I mean, he's like a shark, and it was fresh water, and I remember the first part of the swim, because obviously my swim's improved, I think quite a bit, because I'm now consistently making that, upper front, the front group, pack swims, and in the fresh water, because we were sort of staying attached to him all the way out to the first buoy. I mean, it was obviously well stretched, but I was really on the limit. And luckily at the buoy, of course, his experience, he got away and things sort of calmed down a bit. But I was really sort of struggling to stay in that front group in the swim there in Austria, or, certainly working hard. Whereas in Nice, without a wetsuit, I actually felt more comfortable. I think because the water's so much more buoyant, it's so much salty compared to a freshwater swim. But just being able, now having a better technique, having the ability to use my kick more effectively, I actually feel quite comfortable in the swim skin. So it's the first time ever that I really don't care what the difference will be. It was interesting speaking to Sam Laidlow in Lanzarote, and he said he was hoping for a wetsuit swim because he felt like he can get a better advantage in a wetsuit. Whereas, previous year, he said like in Kona, he was really shocked to see Gustav and Christian obviously still in the front group. Whereas in St. George, they didn't have any trouble dropping Christian. So obviously, I think that was, that might have been reading a bit too much into where Christian's form was at that point, as far as his swim goes. But it is interesting now that, it's always in the past, the top swimmers have said, we want non-wetsuit. Whereas now, I think it could even be the wetsuit technology is a bit different. So if they are able to break that elastic, and so, I don't really know what to hope for. I used to wish for a wetsuit swim, but to be honest, I just don't even really care.
I believe that confidence can really be an extra motivation for you, that you don't have to be afraid of anyone on Sunday.
I certainly don't want it to come across as arrogance, but it's obviously a course, and I guess also in my preparation. As I said, I've done the training I've wanted to do, and in the past when I've been able to do that in the blocks, it's one thing earlier in the year before, Lanzarote or Austria. I love Strava. Everyone knows that. I love putting my training on there. I love that people follow that. I really love that people feel a part of what I'm doing. I know you keep an eye on my Strava. It's funny seeing comments from people who, Cameron, are you doing this session this time? Oh, yes, great, you're doing that. That means you're in good, I seem to have all these experts that are pseudo coaches that sort of comment and keep me in check. It's actually something I really appreciate. So just being able to do those, in the first part of the year, it's hard for me to do 1 week of training, let alone do 2 or 3 or 4, whereas this last few months I've been able to do, blocks of 3 weeks, but multiple, 3 or 4 of them. And that's when you see the big improvements, when you just get week on week on week and then block on block on block, that's where you really build that. Christian Hoggenhag said to me in Nice, he said, far out, like you just look so comfortable, and you're obviously struggling at the back end of the marathons when you race. But he said, it's not that you have the speed or anything, because you put yourself in that position. It's just the fatigue resistance. And I really appreciated him, because I felt that it wasn't probably so much the lack of running that was ruining the end of my Ironman, but it was the fact that I didn't have the conditioning, so the bike was taking a lot more out of me than it usually would. And then I wasn't able to sort of execute a decent run. Whereas obviously now I've had the time to do those weeks of training, get that conditioning, and be a lot more confident that I can finish off the race.
Whom do you have on the top of your list for race day? What do you expect from the dedicated favorites or all the what we've seen lately in all the YouTube videos and Instagram social media? There's a lot of coverage and also content going around how good they are and expectations and as the stamp as the favorite. So it's the usual game, I guess, before the World Championships.
Yeah, honestly, it is. It's so different to Kona. I mean, Kona is so much of a triathlon. You know, it's much more predictable who's going to be up there. We always know, we always know like the 5-star favorites, and then there's someone like myself that if things go the right way, it might work out, or a Lionel where if things go a certain way, he might be there. And it really never varies too much from that. I mean, whereas this course, we have no idea. Like, obviously, Clement Mignon, you can't ignore him. I mean, he won in Nice. He seems to be very consistent, top performer. Whatever he targets, he does well at. I mean, he was top 10 in Kona last year. So he knows how to perform when the lights shine the brightest. Max Newman, Magnus Ditlev, but then Magnus, I guess, is a bit of an unknown just because of his size. I mean, yeah, he's got incredible power, but it's still physics. you still got to cart that up there, and it's not that he's not well and truly strong enough. Same with Sam Laidlow to get up the climbs. It's what does that do to them later on in the race? In the run. So there's just so many unknowns in this field. Braden Curry, a small guy, Bradley Weiss, who. You look at them and you would imagine, well, okay, you guys are great climbers. Honestly, it's just so wide open. I really don't think anyone stands out. I personally, and I think that's probably what gives me so much belief, because I feel like I'm in the melting pot of one of the guys that, could potentially be one of those guys. Like, I think that's what we've got this year. It's just such an unknown with the bike course, compared to a race like Kona. So, yeah.
Yeah, that would also be my expectations, that there's not really a dedicated favorite. Or it's hard to say that before the race, since this is a completely different depth of the field, since it's a World Championship race. So yeah, it's really interesting to see what happens on Sunday. Do you have a dark horse, what probably nobody is talking about, or is flying a little bit under the radar at the moment?
Yeah, no, I mean, I respect in this field, everyone, I mean, obviously, the guys that beat me in Lanzarote, Arthur Hosu, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, but, he can obviously handle a pretty high intensity on the bike. I mean, he obviously gave me a big lead, but he's finished with a 2:38 marathon. So, but when I say a big lead, he only lost 10, 12 minutes. So, if I've got that and then I falter in the run, and running 2:48, he's still in the race. And same with Nick. I'm not sure what Nick's last name is. Lovely young guy. His dad was a pro. He was second, also ran low 240s. And I only took 6 or 8 minutes out of him on the bike. So I'm sure they've improved. Of course they have. They've trained since then and improved. I'd have to say those two are, but you cannot ignore anyone in this field. I mean, look how hard it was for me to qualify. Granted that qualifying, I think, was probably a bigger hurdle because of my circumstances, but still, it just shows the level of the sport where it's at, and everyone now, I don't think the highest level, the top end, the level has changed so much. You obviously get Jan doing his last race, etc. Not that I'm ignoring him at all. He's obviously, any race he starts is a chance of winning. But the top, and I reference him because I'm talking about the top end, I don't think it has changed. I think on his best day, Christian's best day, I guess, of course, Magnus, you can't ignore him, take him out of that conversation now, Gustav. They are still the benchmark. Which I don't think has really changed a huge amount. I know we've had difference in times, but there's so many dynamics with that we it's a bit hard to say the actual, because I think those same people are still at the top. But the depth now, from 5 back to 50, it's almost like everyone could beat each other on their right day. You've got those sort of 5-star guys that stand out, that if they get it perfectly right, it's almost, I don't think anyone can beat them. Max Newman, is obviously in that borderline category as well. But then you've got another 50 guys that could beat each other on any different day. If they race 50 times, there'd be 50 different results. And I think that's the exciting part of the sport, is the depth of that next level, and which obviously is continually pushing the top end. So I wouldn't say I have any specific dark horses. I just think you can't write off anyone in the field. And obviously until it looks like it's mathematically impossible for them to, come back from a deficit or whatever they're at in the race.
Coming back to your explanation of the race characteristics, especially on the bike course, I guess there's no doubt that I would say all the pros are racing on their tri bike, and no one is opting for a road bike like some of them did for the 2019 70.3 Worlds. But this was a different course, different. Did you hear something, or what's your expectations on bike choices?
Yeah, I mean, Gustav obviously raced on a road bike and won that race. That was different in that, as you know, it was basic. There was very little flat. There was just basically getting to the climb, they climbed. Yeah. I mean, that was obviously something I looked at, and why I wanted to race the way I did with pretty much the setup. I mean, like the disc wheel, for example, that was, I think maybe even you were there in 2018. Obviously, Frederick had won that day. I set the bike course record that day. I was on the old time trial bike, the Bollide, the rim brake one still, and I used a low profile front and back wheel. So that would have been what I would have thought. But obviously Princeton, with technology, they've now developed a disc wheel that is, as in a full disc, which is as light as a normal road wheel. And I use that, and that felt. I used it in Lanzarote as well. So I've tested that on a climbing course, and it was really, really good. And then the benefits you get elsewhere, obviously it was also quite windy that day. So, you get the benefits from the disc with the breeze when you get it at the right yaw angles, etc. That was really good. And then obviously, rode the triathlon bike. We did look at, say, using the team time trial bike, which is UCI legal. But the Pinarello did an incredible job with my bike. I mean, it's almost still ahead of its time. It's the same weight as the UCI legal bike, even though there's, it's a little bit more aerodynamic, etc. I've got the storage, the food and everything. So in the end, the difference was, what am I most comfortable on? And of course, I've spent now 4 years on that bike, so I'm very, very comfortable on that bike, climbing and descending. Living here in Andorra, you got no choice. I mean, if I want to train on the bike, unless I want to put it in my truck and drive it down to Spain every time I want to ride it, I've got no choice but to do some descending and some climbing. So for me, the choice was pretty simple, a pretty close to standard time trial, standard Ironman sort of setup. The only difference being is the front wheel, and I still haven't decided on that. It won't be super deep. It's sort of a 60 mil or a 40 mil, and it was very windy in June. So just obviously watching the forecast, and it windy enough, and I had a 70 that day, which was way too big, but that was very windy, and so even a 60 isn't a lot different to a 70. So it'll be a call we'll have to make, obviously, Saturday afternoon when I've got to put the bike in. But yeah, that's the only little piece that is a bit dubious for me to decide at the moment, and I'd be very surprised if everyone didn't have a similar setup.
Race kit wise, I guess you will be wearing the PR2 speed suit. So that's a suit we've been developing together with you for the last almost 2 years. So this was kind of a longer term project together with you. You've been testing some iterations in some races in the past. So can you say something about that? How are you feeling about that? How do you feel about having basically a setup from top to toe dialed in for race day?
Yeah, I mean, well, in reality, we've worked on it since 2018 and just evolved it. I think that year we probably proved the package was pretty exceptional, when we went to Kona.
Yeah.
And obviously it's just been a case of continuing to upgrade it, because obviously others, other brands and everything have tried to catch up. And so, it's always, I always say to you guys when we talk about testing and data and different things, I just trust you. I know that for always, Castelli's been at the forefront of this stuff, and obviously we've been at the wind tunnel and done the, occasionally with me personally to run through some different things. Yeah, that's really nice, and not wanting to, suck up or anything, but it is certainly nice working with partners where I just don't have to worry. I just put the suit on and I know I'm at worst case, definitely not disadvantaged in any way, shape or form, but to be honest, I always feel like I've got a bit of an advantage on everyone with the package that I've got on my body. And obviously the suit is the biggest one. That's the biggest performance gain you can really make as far as having one that fits properly and the right materials and everything. So having the peace of mind, with the suit, and the fact that we have made those changes over the years only, reinforces that to me, because obviously we've always felt like we've had great performances, and the suit's never let me down, and the speed's been great for the amount of power and effort I've put in, etc. So the fact that we've continued to evolve it, just gives me great confidence that I've got the best suit out there on for Sunday.
Now, this is also exciting and good to hear from our end that you are passionate about being involved in the process. And also I stopped counting all the bike course records you set in the last couple of years and all the different races you did. I think this is the suit that thanks to you has holds, not still, but some got broken, like in Hawaii, but you I think you still own quite some records all around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty uncommon that I don't have one when I've been to a race. Yeah. Obviously Kona's still a bit of a head scratcher. Well, just disappointing, I didn't have the day that I would have liked. But we'll get to go back next year, and who knows? Obviously with that, I'm a bit torn on that, because obviously I'd prefer to win the race and have the bike course record again. And I guess to win the race, I'd probably need a tradition's been what we've had. Incredibly quiet conditions, really, every time I've gone. 2017, there was obviously a bit of wind, but since then, it's just been incredibly quiet. And I guess if we do get wind, then there's a chance that record that Sam set probably won't be broken for a very, very long time. Yeah. But that's all right. Yeah, if I don't get that and I get the winners, my name on the winners roll there, then that'd be a decent compromise.
Wrapping up the niche topic about Sunday, going a little bit into all the hundreds or almost thousands of age groupers out there on the course as well. Do you have, if you would have one tip for them, what would it be from your end? You knowing your experience in racing in general, and also you experience the course, the conditions, what would be your number one tip to all of them?
My number one tip would be stay within yourself, on the bike in that first, at least the first big climb. Get through that feeling good, and if you feel really good there, then maybe push a little bit more than you were planning. But this course will creep up on you. As I said, it caught me out in June. I really completely went lights out on the last main climb before you started the big descent. And that was still with 50k almost to go. Okay, it's downhill, but you got to pedal down that hill. It's not like you get a free ride to the finish. So just manage your effort. Stick to your plan. That first climb is not the time to empty the tank. Get over the climb. Eat and drink. Get in a really comfortable position. You're going to be maybe a few hours in at that point, and then. If you're feeling really good, think about, pushing a bit more. But respect the course, because it's not only a long bike ride, but you've still got to then run a marathon. So that would be my best bit of advice.
No, thanks. I think that will help a lot of them to pace themselves right, and maybe not walking too much on the run later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I want to touch into the topic of being a multisport athlete. So you have a background. Your pro career started as a rower, then you became a pro cyclist, then a triathlete, and now you are balancing basically two sports like cycling and triathlon. How did you manage all that? How did you find a way to be always motivated? Also, with all the respect, with the higher age, some of your competitors, they long retired. Some are on road racers or also triathletes. When they enter their early 30s, they're already thinking about retirement or what they do after their pro career. How do you manage all that? You said before, private life, family, everything. So it's the whole life balance. I think is you really have to be good at that.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, and with Nike particularly, we talked a lot about this because they're probably one of my, obviously the team as well. No one allows me to think about my age, being 40 all of a sudden, and then, we're still trying to figure out how I can improve. I think I have never, until recently, done things as well as I could have. I've often just put things, I'll do that later, I'll do it. And then as I've got older, I'm like, okay, I better start doing that. And that has helped me. Okay. I think if I'm blatantly honest, maybe I'll never ever reach the absolute pinnacle of what I was capable of. Maybe my age will prevent me from that. But I still believe from the level I'm at now, I can continue to improve because there's so many things. I mean, I was with Nike in London recently and we were just doing some basic walking drills and different mobility. And I was completely useless. So all of a sudden, once I started to learn how to just move and some hip mobility and how my foot strikes the ground, and all of a sudden, at the track, I'm going, over a kilometer doing the efforts, 5, 6, 7 seconds quicker at the same cadence and the same heart rate. Like, it was insane. And swimming obviously is another one. That's another discipline that I'll just get better at from doing more of it because I didn't do it for the last 30 years. I've done it for the last 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years. And I think that's important to me to distinguish. I'm not saying I think I'm going to hit my athletic peak, the best I could ever be, somewhere in my mid-40s. I think maybe, that was the opportunity to do that was back in your late 20s to early 30s like everyone else. But because I probably didn't capitalize on that period and do everything properly and make all the sacrifices required, I've got all those things up my sleeve to still continue to improve, into my 40s. And Nike have, they've been probably the biggest ones that have done some research and sort of discussed it with me. And it's mentally is the biggest thing. As long as you want to do it, your body is capable. It's just that if you've done something for so many years, of course, by the time you get to 30, you're over it. You've done it for probably 20 years at the highest level and you're just sick of it. I change sports all the time. I change the way I'm doing the sport all the time. So mentally, I'm always excited about improving in some way, shape or form. And that sort of is what has meant age so far hasn't seemed to hinder my progress. And obviously, Tom Brady, the American footballer, we share the same birthday. So, he always talked about 45. I've sort of put that number. I know that 100% it's not going past 45, but whether it's another year or another 2 years, or it is up, in fact, another 6 years, 5, 6 years, well, we'll see. And I'm excited to see that. And I guess I'd prefer to have 5 extra years now of absolutely reaming myself and being the best athlete I can possibly be if I can stay at the highest level, doing everything absolutely perfectly, and then maybe lose 5 years at the end of my life because I've done that, when you're pretty incapable and incompetent and a burden on everyone else. If it means I die at 90 instead of 95, I don't really mind. So I'd prefer to have 5 more years of traveling the world, racing the best athletes in the world, trying to beat them, trying to set records, trying to set a new standard in the sport, trying to do all that. And as far as through every sport, I think it comes from such a young age. I grew up in small places. I grew up on a small island with Tim Reed, who sort of people know about that, Lord Howe Island, 30 school kids. So, in sport, you're obviously one of the best in the class. And then if you're not, it's pretty hard not to be when there's only a few of you to beat. And then you move to Tasmania where it's slightly bigger, but it's still a pretty small place in reality, you know, and you do quite well. You're always at the top end of everything. And then you take that mentality onto a national stage. And of course, you're from Tassie, so we've always got a bit of a chip on our shoulder about beating the bigger states, you know, New South Wales and Queensland, Victoria. So, you know, you're all of a sudden the best in the country. And then, of course, you take that overseas, you know, wanting to take on the Germans, the Italians in rowing and everything else. And you just want to beat them, you know, and the Brits. I think that mentality, as stupid as it sounds, it's instilled in me from such a young age of success that I don't really care who I'm racing. I just want to beat them, and I believe I can. And that's sort of, I think, having that mindset in, especially when I've changed sports, it's just where I want to be. I say that's the standard I set of myself that I want to achieve. Yeah, and I really think that's what it comes from. It's just in my youth, you know, I just grew up just knowing that level. And I just took it as you went through the through the ranks, just to a bigger scale. When people say to me, "Oh, look, it's, you know, I just won my age group. Oh, but it's nothing like what you're doing." I say, hey, it is. It's actually identical. You know, it's all relative, and I know exactly the feel. It's the same feeling. It's all relative to the environment that you're in.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating how passionate you still are, and how much energy you have, and fun, obviously, what you're doing. I think this is key, that you have to like what you do, and then the age is probably not the most important. It's just a number, and if you're still healthy and fit, and if your family is okay with everything, and you feel that you are still competitive, I think why not?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when I stopped cycling the first time, I moved to the US and wanted to work in finance and do all that, you know, yeah, okay, I could have done that, but yeah, I didn't. I ended up back in sport. And so if you come back at that point, then you kind of got to, like what Tony Hawk's documentary is, Till the Wheels Fall Off. It's a bit like that, you know. You, not that you want to go until you start going like this, but I'm just going to give it everything I've got, you know, until I feel like I can't get any better. You know, maybe that'll be a bit of a plateau at some level, and I'll be doing everything I can to stay there. Ideally, that's if I get to the top, and I can hang on to that for a couple more years. But you know, I'm not going to just hang around for the sake of it. But, you know, I came back and I made a commitment now to be sort of silly not to see it through. I feel like, you know, I still got things I want to do. The people that support me still believe there's, you know, especially, you know, the team, obviously, and the guys at Nike on the running side, you know, they're incredibly motivated and supportive always to try and find ways to help me improve. And obviously that, yeah, I just don't have time to worry about my age because it doesn't help anyway. It's not like I can turn up to the start line on Sunday and say, "Oh guys, by the way, I'm almost double the age of a few of you. So can I just swim out to the first boy, or maybe the second boy? Maybe give me 2 boys head start, and then we'll start the race," you know? No one asks for your passport on the start line. So yeah. I remember someone told me that, you know, when I went to the Olympics and I was the youngest, and everyone was saying, "Oh, you're so young, you know, so it's great for the experience. Don't worry, you know, blah, blah, blah. You got so many ahead of you." I've never been again. You know, a friend of mine who had won an Olympic gold medal, he said, "Don't listen to them. No one asks for your passport in the start line. Go out there and try and win." You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're the youngest or the oldest. No one cares. It's you're there to try and win the world title. So and that's the mindset I've taken through my whole career. Same with experience. You know, I've come into sport, you know, it's, "Oh gosh, you came from rowing, you know, in cycling." It's like, well, yeah, okay, that's great, and it's something to talk about, but at the end of the day, none of my rivals are going to give me a head start because I haven't done as many bike races as them. And the same went for triathlon, you know. I mean, it's yeah, you're new to the sport, etc., but who cares? You front up to Kona in your first year and you're leading the race. I mean, everyone wanted to just get past me. No one thought, "Oh gosh, it's his first time and he's only his first year. Let's let him have it." You know? I mean, it's the same with age. If you put yourself on the start line, it just doesn't matter. You're just there as another competitor.
Do you think that the way how you structured your year or your past few years, that you you're picking good destinations for training, different destinations. That this helps you to keep that motivation and also that spirit within you. Like you're moving to Andorra, then during winter time you are spending quite some weeks in California in the LA area. So I think I could imagine that this is also the key to success for you to be motivated and don't really see it as a job, but just as a passion and what you like what you do.
There's no doubt, and I think everyone knows I'm not just saying this. I love doing what I love exercise. I love training, and I love being in stimulating environments. I mean, Andorra, for one, living here, I can't for a second, get complacent. I mean, there's just phenomenal athletes. Obviously now living up there, Hayden Wild trains with me almost every day. Obviously I've got the guys from the team. Lucy Charles actually talking about moving up there. Hayden's girlfriend Hannah's there as well. He's had a buddy of his, a top runner. He's running 3:30s for the 1500, top 5 in the world. Sammy Tanner, he's been there with us too. And that's just my little group. And then obviously the team, and then you've got all the MotoGP guys. It's just a very stimulating environment. It's just an environment that is successful, a very successful environment. And when you go to races and you don't want to suck, you don't want to have to come back to Andorra and not having done, a good job, being performing at a very high level. And Andorra and in LA, it's the same thing. I mean, it's Hollywood. It's a town of. I've got some great friends there. I mean, I've recently become friends with a few of the Rams footballers. Just after they've won the Super Bowl. It's just and when you're training there, you're out in Malibu. You've seen all these things on TV, in the movies, and you can look out over the city. I mean, it's one of the most densely populated cities in the world, and yet, Geraint Thomas and I can be out in the mountains and 5-6 hours you don't even see a car. We do a 5 or 6 hour loop all through the Hollywood Hills up to the sign. I mean, it's just every day is exciting. It's stimulating, and you can almost bank on you're going to see something exciting out there. Something interesting is going to happen. You're going to run into someone at the coffee shop. We see Jolly Miley Cyrus at the coffee shop or something. I mean, it's just a very stimulating place, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, obviously, I choose to sort of move around the world at different times of the year to make sure that I can train properly. I mean, I love being here in winter too, because it's quite unique to be able to get up at sunrise, ski-mo up the mountain just across from where I live and, watch the sun sort of pop up and then ski down and then go to the pool and then go for a ride. You get to the end of a day like that and you go, wow, like, God, what a day. How lucky am I? Yeah, and then, of course, Australia. I mean, because of COVID and having, White at that time and all the restrictions with quarantine, etc. We haven't been able to get back there at all. Well, just haven't made the time. But this summer we will. And I'm really excited about that too, because summer in Australia is incredible. I mean, everyone knows about, the summer of sport. We've got the Tour Down Under. We've got, the Cadel Evans race, obviously. But there's also the crickets on, the Australian Open tennis at the same time. Summer in Australia is like summer in Europe. The place really comes alive, and particularly in that area, Melbourne, Adelaide. And Tassie is just a awesome place to train. I mean, it's you just feel like you're a bit of a tough guy down there. I'm never having to force myself to go out training, and nor do I ever feel like I'm missing out on anything because I am training. I think that's the other key. Especially as you get older and family and different things, if your environment is such that you just feel like you're sacrificing all the time and you're missing out on this and you're missing out on that. I feel like in all those places, I mean, okay, Wyatt's only 3. When he goes to school, things might be different, but that's probably a couple of years away. It's all a part of what I do, and I have a very balanced life doing it. And I think that's also important. You don't have people around you guilting you because, I decided to do the Everest challenge on a random Sunday, and I'm gone all day. So,
Great. Is there something, if you just could think of, or was this ever in your mind that you think, what if I would not be a professional athlete? What profession would it be in the year 2023? You mentioned before you've been into the finance business for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What do you dream of something or think, okay, I don't miss that at all? Or do you have thoughts like that, or not at all?
To be honest, I mean, I honestly love what I do. I mean, this is what I've always wanted to do, and especially doing two sports. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I think, well, anything. I say that. One thing I've thought of recently, and just following it more, with things like Drive to Survive, these documentaries on NFL, even, the all or nothing, like on, Manchester City with Pep Guardiola, reading some books, different things. I would love to be in charge of a big sporting, like a big team, and I don't even care what sport, whether it's baseball or an owner. I mean, that would obviously mean you're very successful financially too. So I guess that would be the dream, that you owned, probably, Manchester United or Liverpool or Barcelona Football Club or Real Madrid or, the LA Rams football team or the LA Lakers, like a big sporting organization, the Yankees, some sort of very, very prominent, role, decision-making role, very much responsible for the success of that club. I would love to be in a position like that. I would like that, watching that, like Toto Wolff, with the F1 or Christian Horner. I admire those guys. Dave Brailsford won, obviously. I mean, he's like a legendary operator. I mean, even Pat Lefebvre. I mean, he's made, the way he keeps his team in the headlines. But what I love about him is often it's being critical of his guys, and there's so little of it in the sport that the media eats that up. But all the time, he's keeping his team prominent. You can never not talk about Quickstep, because the way he conveys to the media, and it's fantastic. I admire that. I mean, we've obviously got Rod Ellingworth running the team now, and he's certainly a bit more low key. He's incredible at recruiting. He's an incredible operator, and just likes to sit there and not be, out in front of people and do his thing. And I admire that approach too. There was a guy, Rod kind of reminds me of like an Al Heyman in boxing. I mean, he was the guy behind Floyd Mayweather. He sort of orchestrated Mayweather's career, picked and chose his opponents at the right time. But no one ever heard of Al Heyman, yet he was one of the most influential people in boxing. So I guess Rod's sort of more, as far as this team's success over so many years, he's sort of kept a quieter role, but had an incredible amount, obviously, of influence and responsibility for the success and the dynasty of the team. But yeah, so that would be the one thing, I guess. I'd love to be, in charge of a big sporting organisation. That would be. I really admire those guys at the top of that. It's really cool.
That's really interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that, but that's really interesting that you have this kind of thoughts and dreams still.
Yeah, I mean, I think the finance thing is obviously the easy one. I mean, now I get more and more people approaching me, wanting me to do stuff. And now even more so, people are really getting, I guess as you do, even if it is 5 years away from when I'm dedicated full time to maybe a professional career outside of sport. But that type of finance world is pretty keen on athletes. But yeah, if I could say that there was one thing that someone came and offered me that would sort of stop me in my tracks and sort of change my life, uproot the family, potentially move to America, for example, if it was the LA Rams, running a team like that, or the Lakers, I'd be like, yeah, or owning it. That'd be pretty amazing.
Awesome. Towards the end of our conversation, I want to ask you one question about Sunday again. So when at the finish you've done the race, what result or performance would you be happy about achieving on Sunday? What would satisfy you?
It's so cliche, isn't it? But you just say you do your best, but it's the truth. I mean, I obviously have a visualization and dream that my best will be the guy that crossed the line first. So the combination of those two would be the ideal outcome. But if I've hit every marker that I wanted to and had the race I sort of have prepared for, and I'm beaten, it is what it is. There's better people. You can only control what you can control. Obviously, you can try and influence what they do a bit with your own actions and throw them off their guard. But it's the reality is, at this level, you give it everything you got and get it right. Let's see where that lands. But a combination of both would obviously be the best. But as long as I finished that race knowing that I gave it everything I had and got out all the work that I'd put in, and Castelli had put in, and Pinarello put in, the team had put in, Nike, all these people around me, support me on this journey. Obviously, my family, etc. That's to me the most important thing, is being able to look them in the eye and know that between us that I've given it everything I had, and nothing more can be asked of you. And that's it is just about me when I'm out there, without a doubt. It's all the lights are on you. You're on your own. No one can help you once you're out there. But to me, the most important thing is later on being able to, look at the people in the eye that have been there for you over so many years. We've been working together for 6 years now, 5 years. It's a long time. 6 years, I think. And everyone I work with has been there that time. I have not changed partners in anything that I've done the whole period. And so to me, that's really important, is you guys genuinely feeling that I've given it everything in return for all the efforts you guys have put in.
I will definitely watch the race closely, and I'm keen to see what you will be capable of doing. And then I wish you all the best for Sunday, for race day, and then hopefully you will be a happy man at the finish.
Well, hopefully a lot of us will be happy.
Yeah. Cameron, thanks a lot for talking to us, and then all the best again for Sunday.
Pleasure. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Cheers.